swimming, so.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. Is there any public input? Very quiet crew tonight. Okay, what's going on with business? First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 11th school board work session. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion to approve the December 13th school board town budget committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Sorry. I do always.
Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion to accept the December 17th school board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Second, oh, sorry, you did second.
Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. December 20th school board and town budget committee meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any errors, corrections, or omissions?
Do you want to clarify the first paragraph on the second page, the recommendations from the budget committee, so that it would read, Steve Kelly stated that the budget committee would like the school board to consider the following three things. That they consider level funding the 2019-20 budget with the current 2018-19 budget, which is roughly a $200,000 commitment. And I think we could say, which is roughly a $200,000 decrease.
Okay.
To be clear on what he was asking, I believe that was your intention, or the budget committee's intention. Okay.
Any other corrections?
In B, under Lakeway Elementary, one cost that is certain is $388,000 for architecture fees and purchase of Greenwood Acres. I think that $388,000 should be architecture fees and engineering and.
Correct. Do I hear a second or no? Everybody okay with that correction?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Motion to accept with the amendments.
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I think we're on the last one.
Yeah.
January 3rd. Motion to accept the school board work session, please.
So moved.
Okay, any errors, corrections, or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The manifest in the middle of the table, I don't know if it's finished or not. We now have a treasurer's report.
Ann, you ready for it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you should have on your computer the report from December 31st. Yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, hold up.
Yeah, all right, and so everything balances out as of December 31st, which you can see in front of you. I don't have one with me right now.
Okay with it?
Are
Okay.
you?
I did ask Tom for clarification on the E fund, E-rate, which he's forwarding to Dale, and it relates to a rebate for technology and stuff like that. So.
But I don't know right off the top of my head what the specific projects were, so we're going to try to get some of the details.
Tom, do you have a sense generally in how our revenues are matching up to what we projected at the budget season last year, as you're kind of looking at the big picture?
For the most part, actually looking better than the budget. We had some increases when we did revised revenue in September.
Okay,
Picked up additional kindergarten aid, and
right, okay,
a couple of other things.
so that's good,
CAT aid was increased.
okay.
That's not good.
Well, the reason it isn't, but the fact that we're going to see more revenue is helpful.
Okay.
Plus, we also got those 2 Keno checks.
Right, that's the kindergarten aid, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Keno working for us, huh?
It is.
22,000.
Jerry, it's
Okay.
about time.
Those revisions were included in the tax calculation in the fall.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any further questions on the treasurer's report? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. No unfinished business, how amazing. Next thing on the agenda is the Lakeway construction funding options.
Everybody talk at once.
We don't have any paperwork. I know you had sent us that.
Just what I sent you the other day. I
Okay.
think, you know, basically, the basic questions that are before us is, you know, the number, we've kind of been working with the same number all along, 900,000. The question is, do we take that as a one-time, one-shot warrant article, pay for the entire cost up front? Do we put it out, and again, we have noticed a bond hearing, so do we put it out as some type of a short-term finance? Is that for 3 years or for 5 years? And then the other option that we talked about a little bit, not option, but another aspect of this whole process is, do we find ways to buy down the cost, that upfront cost a little bit? And one thing I know was suggested to us via the budget committee was to utilize some of the capital funds, specifically the CTE funds, to help defray that initial front-end cost. And I think as we looked at the other day, during the budget work session, we could, unless we heard something differently today, Tom, did
I
we?
did not.
I mean, it looks like we could, in theory, buy down at least some of that upfront $900,000 by shifting some of the funds around and how we handle some of the funds, specifically paying for the CTE bond payment out of the CTE funds, using that 150 that was there, pushing that into the general fund, and paying down the cost of the architect, engineering, and land purchase by 150,000. So that would lower a potential bond or short-term note to 750,000, or I guess same could be said for a warrant article, just a straight warrant article for that matter.
Do you want it, since we have some budget committee members present, do
Yeah.
you want to explain why it can only be 150,000 versus what they had proposed out of that, fund?
I'll defer to Tom on that, I know he's had most of the conversation, but.
We do receive state building aid for that project, and about $177,000. So I reduced the amount of principal and interest payments by that 177 to come to the net district obligation for those payments. Those payments include costs for both the middle school and the CTC. CTC funds can only be used for the CTC portion of it. So that brings it down, and there is a cautionary tale that, and this I haven't mentioned previously, it can only be used for principal, not for principal and interest. So I brought 184,000 down to about 150,000. That's what I have proposed at this point. That would include an increased appropriation in the budget for engineering and architecture services, coincidentally for $150,000, which would reduce the amounts that would have to be borrowed or otherwise funded. One caveat to that, however, is if I put that $150,000 for the architects in the operating budget, and my operating budget is defeated, but the warrant article for the building is approved, I'm $150,000 short, or I have to make some really significant cuts to stay within the default budget. So that's the good news.
Cautionary tale.
Well, you said that we haven't heard from Mr. Graham?
I spoke with him just before I came in here.
Oh, okay.
I don't have his written report yet, but,
So verbally,
so verbally, we can use those funds
the
for
CTC
the
fund.
CTC funds to partially pay down the CTC bond.
Mhm. But if something gets defeated, we're kind of out of luck. Right?
Yes? Because you won't have the appropriation.
Right.
It's not a matter of the revenue, you can use those funds anyway, but you won't have an additional appropriation to cover the architecture.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's coming. It could still happen, we'd have to cut the budget, find the money in the existing
In
budget,
the default at that point.
and we do the default.
Plus, even if it's offset, by using that capital reserve fund, it does increase the overall budget amount by $150,000 too.
Yes.
So by doing it like that, just,
Right, the engineering appropriation.
right.
So I think that's a little bit of the fear, I mean, speaking for myself, I think that was a creative option, and maybe one the board will still consider. We're a little concerned about getting too much of a margin or a gap between the default budget and the proposed budget. And I realize that the solution to that is to cut the proposed budget back some more anyway. I get that too, but that's that'll be the next discussion, I guess, we start talking about the general fund.
And
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I guess maybe the overriding thought initially is, I mean, amongst the board, whatever discussion has been, is there any trepidation about asking for a one-time payment from the taxpayers of the $900,000? I mean, is the budget committee the only ones that think that that's a bit of a challenge, or is that just being, is that not just, but is that being weighed against another challenge? I mean, in my mind, whenever I see something that's over $1 in and of itself,
I know,
that makes me worry about it passing.
right.
And obviously, you know, from the vote of the budget committee is resoundingly in favor of proceeding with this phase 1 of this project. But the fear is that it's too big of an ask in one lump sum. And I'm not saying that we can't be wrong, I'm not saying that I can't be wrong. But,
Right.
but that's the concern that I have. And that's why I was thinking that if we could get it down to a lower number, and obviously at the same time showing due diligence on the behalf of the school that they're identifying other funds that they're contributing to the project, that
Yes.
enhance the chance of a positive vote from the public. That's.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I mean, I did a little bit of the work over a few days, and you know, let's say if you go with 750, finance of 750 in 5 years, you're looking at 21 cents on the tax rate with the current valuation. That's obviously a much smaller shock than a buck and change would be.
What about funding it with the $150,000 with the unfunded balance?
Well, of course, that's not guaranteed.
It doesn't exist.
Like any other,
Right.
Yeah,
the
it doesn't exist.
retained fund balance is really just the beginning balance for the new year.
Mhm.
Okay, it's not a set-aside account
Right.
like a capital reserve fund or something. So to that is added any additional revenue that we pick up, or reduced by any revenue that we don't get. Likewise with expenditures. So that number is, that would have to be written like your capital reserve fund articles,
Mhm.
with an up to
Up to,
$150,000, the balance to be by financing or taxation, depending on how you choose to go with it. But the 150 isn't guaranteed.
Mhm.
Yeah, and, you know, and this is what we're gonna talk a lot about, as we talk about our budget with the hearing, we'll hear the deliberative session, you know, we're getting, our budget is getting really hit hard right now by some of the needs of some students. And, you know, we're gonna spend $550,000 this year on tuition costs for students that need specialized services. And our budget has $240,000 in it for that purpose. So that's $310,000 we're having to make up there. We would love to bring in a level general fund, and as the budget committee, I think, respectfully requested, but you know, when we're staring down the same students being in the same situation next year, we're looking at, again, $550,000 next year. You know, again, to put that in perspective, a few years ago, we were spending $140,000, $150,000. It's been going up a little bit every year, and if everything we've been reading about in the news is about the effects that we've been hearing for a while of poverty and drug abuse and just some other things that are happening all across the country, that number is just going to keep on going up and up and up. And I think the other thing that I've been saying about this issue as well is that it's a statewide problem that you expect the local taxpayer to pay for, and that's where the inequities and the injustices of the New Hampshire funding system really start to hit home. Because there's a little bit of catastrophic aid we get, but it isn't much. And so yeah, if you happen to, you know, you happen to have students that have really high level education needs that live and go to a town or move to a town or grow up in a town that has a low wealth per pupil, it's really tough on the budget. I do want to point out Littleton is not a super low wealth valuation per pupil town anymore. We're not way up there, but we certainly have others that have a less wealth per pupil than we do as well. So, you know, in terms of retained fund balances, again, for us to have that to give back next year, would assume that or not to ask for it next year is what it amount to. Would assume that we had it, and I don't see how we're going to have it at the end of this fiscal year. We'll be lucky if we're not dipping into the retained funds that we held or into our capital fund. We'll see.
And do you mean, Steve, the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund? Yes, okay.
We'll be lucky.
Yeah,
You know,
no, I just wanted to clarify that.
Exactly, or the retained fund balance. So, but that aside, it does sound like the CTE fund is feasible, legal. It would certainly help buy down the cost up front. I know that's what the committee and I think everyone's trying to work with to give us the best shot at this.
So some more work.
Well, it doesn't sound like we really can, I mean, I like the idea of trying to use any unexpended funds at the end of the year, but,
You can't count on it.
right, and it sounds like it's probably unlikely, you know, or there might be something, but if we phrased it as up to, and we did sort of count on the CTC fund, we could go for that. Again, it is risky because it increases our budget then. So even though it will be, you know, so we'll need help getting that communicated at the different sessions if people start to ask about it, I guess, with, you know, if we try to take this recommendation. Because it does increase that then by another $150,000. So, but I'm open to doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you guys.
I mean, I think at this point, we really have no choice but to look at doing a bond with this. I mean, in light of what happened at the selectmen's meeting, we're kind of hamstrung at this point. It's really not an option for us to do it in one chunk at this point any longer. So we have to go with what has been put forward already and do what's best for the taxpayer and the school district at the same time.
It's based on the selectmen's recommendations, what you're saying?
Yeah, with the budget committee's recommendation to the selectmen on the December 27th meeting, correct?
I mean, we're also worried if we didn't bond it, we could vote no as a
Right.
budget committee, and then on our warrant, it would say not supported by the budget committee,
Yeah.
which would certainly not encourage people to vote for it. We certainly discussed that, you know, it's
The
a
budget
factor.
committee does not want to not support it.
I know.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
I mean,
Right, but we don't
have
know that
supported
you
it.
would still support it if we did that, you know, so I mean, we feel like we have to bond it, so.
Obviously, just speaking for myself, so I can't speak to everybody else. I already tried that once and didn't work.
We're here now to watch you,
But
Steve.
my sensitivity level has been increased, but of all the conversations I've had, I think the budget committee very much wants to support this, and they want to support it in the way that they feel will be best, most likely to succeed. And I'm not gonna say if the school board decided that the 110 was still the way to go, or the 750 or whatever, that I'm not gonna say there's gonna be a negative vote. I don't sense that. I would certainly still encourage a positive vote myself as best I could, but ultimately we'd like to have it pass.
And I'm Heather, I'm budget
Hey, Heather.
committee too, and I just wanted to say that that's my thought, is really what we're trying to propose ideas, to try to put heads together to figure out how are we gonna get this passed, like what's
Yeah,
the most likely to go through,
Right.
so.
I think that's
I guess it-
appreciated,
Yeah.
but I also think that we as a school board haven't moved, we were trying to move forward to see what was best
Yeah,
for us as well, and working within our budget and the funds that we have, and now it's already out there that this is what the budget committee and the board of selectmen have recommended without getting where we were standing first. So we're kind of up against the ropes on that. It really puts us in a tough position now.
yeah, but I guess I was thinking what Steve said is I wouldn't necessarily think that the budget committee will turn that down, because we make a recommendation, but that's obviously based upon our knowledge, and you have your own knowledge too, and know things that we don't know.
Well, that's the thing.
So, you know, I'm not,
That's true.
I wouldn't personally as a budget committee member vote no because of the message that would send, even though my resolution may be different than yours.
Right.
The fact is we need it. And so I would hope that, you know, no matter what, we back you with whatever. We put our heads together and come up with this the
I think so
best.
too. Yeah.
I think a key component is obviously showing the community that we've done our homework and we've done everything we can to lessen the impact or minimize it as best possible. I think people, they've always appreciated that, and I'm sure they will continue to appreciate that. What they don't tend to like is just, here's the bill to pay for it.
Right.
They want
Yeah,
to understand the discourse that went, the discussion that went into it, and the efforts that went into it. Obviously, all the caveats that Tom mentioned, or
Yeah.
whatever, the
Yeah.
what ifs, those are gonna be considered also. And I've never been one to buy into the difference between the default budget and the proposed budget, although I can certainly see where that's a reality. I think at Littleton, and I believe in most cases, since Senate Bill 2, we have voted for not that there've been no exceptions, but I believe we have voted for the proposed budget in most all cases.
No, you doing something?
If we're debating whether we do a one-time charge, which would be about $200 per average homeowner, or do we bond it out for 5 years, is it too late to do some type of informal marketing research? And research is too fancy a word. Just for example, years ago, we wanted to know about the farmer's market, so in 2 hours, I asked 220 people, yes and no questions, and got it done. So is it too late to feel to do something as informal as that, to see that we do actually put our best foot forward?
I really feel like we're gonna do a bond.
Yeah, I
And
do
so,
too.
I mean,
At this
I'm
point.
just gonna say that for
Okay.
me,
Sure.
where we stay, where I stand after what's
Yeah. Right.
happened, so I don't.
But just addressing Steve's question on whether or not we had that trepidation of whether or not we'd be able to do a one-time
Yeah, that's 60%.
versus a bond, I mean, we're at that point.
So we move up to meetings 3/5, so with that
Right.
bond, and the bond hearing would be on Wednesday night at 5:30, so.
Yeah, we have to do it
If the
then.
snowstorm doesn't cancel.
Weather
Yeah.
permitting,
It's not looking real great, is it?
In that case, it'll be Thursday.
May I stir the pot?
Please do.
We love
Fire
it.
Because it's not moving fast enough.
With the idea of adding $150,000 to the operating budget for engineering, we know that's an increase in, flat increase in appropriation of $150,000. On a 5-year note, the difference in the appropriation is $33,000. If you borrow 900 versus 750.
Right.
Yep,
You haven't increased the operating budget by 150.
Right, so you're just saying borrow the full 900,000,
Right.
because it's, to do that.
Or
one-
900 less.
Whatever
fund
we have,
balance.
because we had the
Yes.
unexpended fund balance, right, because is it really worth it to do for that? Based upon your estimates, it looks like 4 cents on the tax rate, at 5%, or this is at 3%, at 5%, it's 5 cents on the tax rate to borrow, to do that CTC 150. I don't know if it is a,
And again,
it's
then
worth
you
it.
don't have the risk of one being approved and the other not.
no,
Right, I mean,
I'm totally in favor of
right.
doing the whole 9. Not, that's my opinion.
up to 900,000. Of course,
Not split it.
everything isn't set in stone on this yet either, so that also
Right.
boxes us again. If we, anyways, if you know what I mean
So you're
here.
doing a one-time bond, you're looking at a 5-year instead of a 3-year?
Well, I was just really looking at the impact
Yeah,
on
we
the
think
tax
about
rate,
that.
since
Do we
that's
have
such a big
any-
concern, but,
48 hours.
Oh, okay.
Better get
Just
ready.
before 5 o'clock, we'll meet at 4:30, is that the idea?
Oh, no, 48 hours, huh?
so let's see, what are we looking at for the overall So almost $140,000 of extra payments that will, if we bond it out over 5 years at the 5% rate, 140, that's significant.
Mhm.
Yep.
No, that's a couple positions. 3%, 82,000 about, 83 maybe.
No, it was on This is the highest tax rate. Well,
If we're gonna do
3 years at 5%,
two.
3 years at 3%.
And the 3%, is that a quote or
I received
Roughly.
information Friday night,
you don't have a name, right?
a quote of 2.95
At 3 years.
Close enough.
for 3 or 5.
3
Or
or
5,
3
okay,
or 5, no
That's nice.
prepayment,
okay,
no prepayment.
No origination, no prepayment.
okay.
No point.
I think we're 5 for 9.
What'd you say, Greg?
And if that's the case, if we've got that already quoted to us, then it makes sense to just go the full 9 for 5 years. It's 24 cents.
I agree.
And then if we're able to reduce it.
More though over the.
For the
Do you think it's gonna bring it down that much? This is 3 years.
Oh,
This is the 3-year
this is 5
interest
years
rate.
right here.
Oh, right there?
Right there.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry.
But then we.
No, it says 5 years,
Pay more
3%.
interest.
Okay.
We pay
I'm
more
not reading
interest,
this right.
yeah.
So the
Is
3% interest in for 5 years, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, right here.
This is all 3% as well.
5
Okay,
years.
okay,
Right.
so,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So you're saying 5 years at the 3%?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
um,
So every year we'll have that extra for 5 years,
Mhm.
that extra point.
Should be
Okay.
30.
It's 26 cents on the tax rate.
You could go 3, but it's
26 or 24 cents. Steve, this is what we're reading.
There, you're looking at, excuse me, you're looking at 3%. Yeah, 24 cents, you're right.
24 cents, okay.
Yeah, I put the
Okay.
5 there, but
Yes.
it'll be within that range. It looks like it'll be closer to 3 than 5.
Yeah,
so.
probably,
So, and
over the long
I
run.
mean, what if you don't pay it off early, that's.
Right.
Well, state aid.
could we pay off it early or not?
Yeah, you can.
No prepayment penalty.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll want,
So if you get a bond for the full project 2 years out.
Yeah.
But can we use state aid funds to pay down that bond?
yeah,
Yes.
although there's,
As it's written now.
this is still, the state aid thing is very much a moving,
Yeah.
fluid.
It's gonna come through.
I think it is. We just can't assume the rules are gonna stay the same. That's what worries me a little. They're not, they won't necessarily follow the exact same rules.
20 cents.
Right.
I think the state aid's 68.
Right, no, I'd much rather
When it
be at
comes
that,
here,
maybe
we'll
we can
see.
get lower,
Sure.
so.
Look at that mess down there.
I think it's
Andy Clark's been here.
Obviously, the question is what, like
Right.
any banker knows or borrower, if you longer you borrow, the more interest you pay, and the shorter you borrow, the less interest you pay, so.
yeah, I know, yeah.
So I mean, in that, and on that amount of money, it's a pretty hefty figure. But, having said that, on the shorter term, it's roughly 39 cents on the tax dollar, and then 24 cents opposed to the 5-year, and that kind of sticks out better for me. The 24 cents
Yeah, no, I
on the
think-
tax rate, even though if we keep it to 5 years, we could pay up to that interest. I think you have to take that risk, that's my opinion.
So do we want a motion in for this, or is this something we finalize Wednesday, or what?
We need a motion tonight,
Tonight.
please, yeah.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to pursue the quote of roughly 3% on a 5-year term bond for the full 900,000,
Up to.
or up to the full 900,000 for 5 years.
And are you specifying an amount of fund balance that you'd cap it, or is just the full 900,000?
Up to 900, and then if we have some undesignated funds at the end of the year, then we can obviously reduce that.
I need to specify that amount in the warrant article though.
The amount of the undesignated funds?
Oh.
Okay,
As an up to.
okay,
Okay,
okay. So,
so we need to somehow, with a potential reduction up to $150,000 from undesignated
Yeah,
funds.
that's what we
We
talked
can
about.
wordsmith that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll work.
and that would take us down to 20 cents.
Right.
So I'll second that motion.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Big stroke of business.
All right.
Now we just have to sell it.
You will, Steve.
Won't
you?
Yeah.
You'll try.
I know you will.
Okay.
You'll support it.
I mean, Littleton is a very giving community, we all know that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know.
well, we sure do, November, and years ago.
So we have
All right.
for the budget presentation.
Okay, you got the
Yep.
latest rendition. I think Tom gave you a little bit of a summary sheet here that helps kind of
It
show
does
our
help.
ever evolving. Yeah, it's already out of
This is
date.
obsolete.
Oh,
Well, because of what we probably just did.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make copies of this.
welcome to our world.
Or just for everybody else.
So with that, what we
So we
just
can take
decided
off
on
the
that.
149, right?
Yes,
Right,
and we'll leave that account at $1.
correct. And
Okay.
that, the reserve funds for the CTC remain where they are.
Well, that would be in the revenue side anyway. If I
Right, but I mean, that's what we
Yep.
decided tonight, we're not touching
Yes.
that, so, okay.
Yeah,
So we're down to,
better news from somebody else. So what is? This is
So
not
that-
correct, which is not correct.
So we'll take off that 149,999.
so we can take that off.
Oh, and put it 100. Up to.
It'd be about 96,000 then over, is that right? Yeah, I'll wait, you guys can.
Well, this will be,
Your math is much faster than mine.
we reduced the bottom number by 150, right?
I do it your way too.
Yeah,
So
that's
15,
149,
335.
so I just did it over here and
Right.
put that, yeah, okay, I just took it out to the very end where I should have, yeah, okay. So if you get what I got.
Yeah.
I'm working.
That's not the right figure to
No.
take it off, all right? The 245 is not the figure to work?
No, I was taking it off of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes us down to 153.
So let me try to explain the best I can. You've got the document that Tom prepared too, and kind of walk you
I got the same thing.
through a little bit where the budget has changed a little bit since we started working on it. Look back in 11-7, we had a pretty hefty number in there because we thought health insurance might increase by 5%. So we had a pretty good chunk of money sitting in there to cover for that. Thankfully, instead of going up 5%, went down 3.4, so that saved us a ton of money, as you can see. 190 or so. Had a few other adjustments that we need to make along the way, with some insurance, teacher stipends. There's a few things that have changed in the budget line-wise that Tom noted here. It had no impact on the bottom line. But again, moving ESOL out of the general ed and the special ed into the 1260, into a 1260 account. Curriculum coach, instead of being charged solely to Lakeway, spreading that out among the two buildings. Then we came back in, made an adjustment for Channel 2. Channel 2 is doing a lot more broadcasting now. We're still working under the original agreement to split costs between us, the hospital, and the town. Some other adjustments per contract with a couple of administrators or several administrators. And then we added $100,000 into sped tuition, which got us from 240 up to 340. The time we did it, that looked like a lot of money. 340 because we do have the $155,000 in reserves, so that puts us right at 500. But again, costs have gone up even since then. So at that point, we were looking at a budget increase in the general fund of $191,769. Then since that time, we backed some things back down. We removed a couple of the original budget requests. We were going to add a couple of staff, or at least a half-time, increase one teacher from half-time to full-time, and then we were going to add a full-time school social worker. And both of those, even though they had some other funding, had a cost to the general fund. The general fund that sits in front of you tonight, however, does not contain either.
So that's what you're proposing, Steve?
Yeah,
Okay.
so what the general fund you have right here
Yeah.
now, the latest rendition of it, there is no funding in it for the school social worker. We do plan to have a half-time school social worker next year, but that's paid exclusively out of the IDA grant. And then the teacher ed position that we were proposing to increase from 0.5 to 1.0 remains at 0.5. So there's no staffing increases out of the general fund, and then there's really no staffing increases at all, save the 0.5 social worker, and that's a grant-funded position.
And this roll forward does not include the last change to special ed for another, was it 90,000?
Another 60. So we added
What was
another.
it?
So we
It
added,
doesn't
If you
include
look at
that.
the total on the big report versus the total on the roll forward, they're not the same.
okay, yeah.
So wait, what was this about the special ed? I'm not really,
Yeah, no,
just
in
give me
in the special ed, the big report you have here
yeah,
has the extra 60 in it, right? Tom?
Right, so we're.
So what we have in this report for special ed tuition now is $400,000.
okay, so we are,
In the full budget you have here, which is an increase of $160,000 from our current budget. Which,
60.
160,000, which coincidentally is pretty much, had we not had to go there, that we would have had pretty much a level funded budget. So, the other change, and I haven't talked to you about this before, so I know when you saw maybe the meeting notes, may have been a bit of a surprise. I do think with the above the notch school, it's wise to put a few more dollars in the appropriation. And I think, as I explained, the reason for that being, if everything stays the same, you know, the number of students we have, either both in district and out of district, kind of stays where it are, which is fine. We've got $60,000 in the general fund to pay for that program, plus grants that are non-competitive. I don't want to say sure thing, but as near to a sure thing as you can get. Federal grants that will pay for the rest of the cost of the program. So the program is in the black this year. It's going to be in the black next year. However, if we do start to attract more out-of-district tuition-bearing students, and we may, and we start attracting more even in-district students, and we may, then that budget's not going to be enough to satisfy the staffing that we need. So that's why I put in the last proposed budget a $30,000 increase into above the notch that will be offset by revenue. Okay, we don't use the additional $30,000 of appropriation unless we have revenue to offset it. Because here's the problem: if we don't do that, as you know, then we have the revenue coming in, we have the expenses, maybe some other students we bring in, we have the expenses that we might incur with that, but we have no way to pay for that other than taking those additional expenses, other than taking from other parts of the budget. If that makes sense.
Is there a difference in the people who use the above the notch school in terms of what they pay, depending upon where they live?
Yeah, if they're out of district, they pay tuition. They pay tuition of $6,000.
No charge, I know. For
But they live in the school district and are below the age of 18, they pay no tuition. If they're below the below the age of 20 or 21, if they have an IEP, they would pay no tuition. Over that age of 21, then they're full-fledged adults, and they do have to pay a small amount for the courses.
If they live in Littleton?
If they live in Littleton.
What if they live in Sugar Hill? Or what if they live in Whitefield?
And adults?
And yeah, what you just described, what do they pay?
We haven't run, I'm sure we will run upon that circumstance in the near future. Good question. I've not even asked Rochelle about how she, what do you,
The grant,
we talk about that one?
the adult funding.
We get some
the grant
state
we get
funding
from
for
the
that.
state for the
Yeah.
adult funding portion keeps that rate down. But we've got to ask.
Yeah, that one, that's a good question. You know, we did a lot of work with the other, but.
Well, I think our goal was to get it up and running and not
Yeah.
worry so much about the money issue.
True.
To get people involved and see the need, and then they'll revisit it, come back, and maybe set up a
So we'll
certain
get
pay
that.
scale. But our goal this year was to get that up and running.
We'll get that clarified.
Yeah.
So Steve, I just want to make sure I'm understanding
Yes.
what you're requesting now.
Yes.
So I'm trying to kind of put this together. Based upon this change sheet, Tom, and maybe you can, so what I
I'll produce
understand,
another one for you.
you are, okay, that'd be good, because I really need that.
That actually was the earlier addition today, so.
No, that's okay. So one thing, is we've really increased on this change sheet, really, we're up to an additional 160,000 for special education, is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay, so I'm at 160 there.
From current year,
Right,
not from where we start, well, from where we started all.
no, but just on this specific sheet,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I get that.
We're at 400,000.
And then we removed basically $150,000 for the architecture and engineering services, because
There's no
we're
longer in
gonna,
there,
we took that out.
right.
And now, I think what I'm hearing you're saying is you wanna add 30,000 to this as well.
I do,
Okay,
to
so,
the appropriation, yes. Or to the expenses, if
to
you,
the expenditures.
yep,
Okay, so now we're gonna add 30,000,
correct.
okay.
So,
So we're up to one.
I can, or Tom's got it.
Is that 30 to that?
So it's actually is the change to the 1/8 edition rather than the 1/7 edition.
You're keeping me up at night.
I'm glad I'm the only one.
I am. All right.
That's a better number. You make copies of that too.
Oh, I made a couple. Steve probably makes one. Phil's gonna make it.
Those all stay the same.
So both of these were new as a.
30 and the 60, yep, yep.
Now, is this fun?
Hi, Rod.
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
90 in there?
I believe he's asked.
Uh,
I don't really totally understand this job.
I did see that he changed. He didn't put on the one.
The first sheet you had was before these changes were made this afternoon.
Right, the one you
And
just
before the
barely
big
handed
report.
us.
The one I just gave you
Yeah.
includes the increase for above the notch. It includes the increase to special ed, and it
There
eliminates
it is, I see it.
the engineering.
This year.
Okay.
So this actually is the change to the 1/8 edition that I'll print tomorrow.
Yes.
District money is 1/2 plus seat, Perkins money comes up.
That's what I thought.
He's already.
So,
There comes
so
about
Steve, are you proposing for, CTC for the teacher education?
Yeah,
What is the full amount of time you're proposing that that person work next year?
at this point, the proposal supports a half-time position. We have a little bit of Perkins money that we may be able to increase that position a bit. And I think the thing everybody needs to remember is that, you know, this is January. A lot can happen between now and April, May, with personnel and programs and enrollment. You know, we always have to remind people that, you know, we will make adjustments in staffing based on enrollment. And we'll see how that program continues to draw students, and we'll see how other programs and you know, how those students, you know, play out there.
Okay.
So I think at this point, from a budgetary standpoint, staffing standpoint, it stays the status quo, which is 0.5, until we see where things go.
That's the status quo?
The status quo in terms of the general fund expenditures, yes. Because right now the general fund is funding a 0.5 position there.
And the social worker position, you are saying in this budget, you're proposing 0.5 that would be grant funded?
Correct. Nothing is funded by the general fund though for social worker.
Yeah, but we still have to put it in the budget.
It's funded, it doesn't show up in the general fund.
We budget grants at the flat $650,000.
Yeah, it flows
It's
through.
gonna be for-
That's
So
different.
the Title I positions aren't in the budget?
They are, but it's part of the 650. We
Right,
have-
but why wouldn't the social worker then be?
It would be part of the 650.
I think they're
I
asking
guess-
why didn't it show up in the general fund?
If the Title I teachers show up in the general fund, why wouldn't the social
The
worker?
Title I teachers don't show up in general fund, they show up in Title I,
Okay,
Yeah,
and so,
which is the special revenue funds of $650,000.
okay,
as
Revenue and expenditures.
do, there's several other positions that are 100%, like the
okay,
early childhood position doesn't show up either. It's not in the general fund, it's not in
The social worker.
the social workers.
Assistant social worker.
Yeah, those don't show up in the general fund and then are funded by the grant.
Okay.
So were we originally budgeting for half in the general fund and half through budget, through grants? Is that how we originally?
With which one?
The social worker.
Because it's 65,000
Yeah,
basically
about.
took out. Okay.
Well, the reason, here's why it becomes a big number quickly, is because of insurance.
Right.
Right.
That's what
Sure.
really, that's
But what I'm saying is originally we had,
and retirement also, you gotta start paying that too, which is a huge chunk, yeah,
but originally we had approved a full-time.
we did.
But that full-time that we approved, was it 50% grant funded and 50%?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then the charge
For
to
the 1
general
year.
fund was about 68,000, if I remember right.
First year, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So we did that that's, so there's some reductions there, 119,000 or so, because of adjustments in those two positions. And there's things in here, there's things that precede, frankly, we need to do a better job, and we try to keep track of the things we've done in history. We need to precede 11.7, because before we even got to 11.7, we cut over $100,000, well over $100,000 out of the budget. Actually, we cut quite a bit out of the budget before I ever went to the first budget committee meeting, so.
Significance is 11.7 was the first report that went to the budget committee. So if someone's there with 80 pages and they're gonna say, how come the numbers are different? This is what we've done since.
Since then.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't reflect all the things that were cut out from what the administrators proposed at all. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
so
much,
we
much
need to
more than
back-
that.
we need to
I mean,
back this up
before
a
it
little
even went
bit
to the
more.
budget committee, yeah. So, I mean, just think about facilities repairs. That came in at 120 from
Right.
administration, it's down to 60-something now, before it even went to the budget committee. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that were cut out, a lot of things.
And the comment made at the last gathering we had for Lakeway, and rightfully so, was we need to take better care of our facilities. And I'm sitting there going, yes, we'd love to. We'd love all the money in the world to take care of our facilities, but we have what we have. So it's so right on. They don't take care of themselves. But they have the money.
So Steve, on the big packet you gave us, Tom, page 31 has adult continuing ed programs. And that currently is in there at $90,000.
Yeah,
So prior to today, that was in there as 30?
60.
60.
30 off.
Oh, sorry, 16, we're adding 30.
Yeah.
Wrong line, I was looking at the one below.
Yeah, and I've said before, and I want to set the record straight. I've said before that we had expenditures in the general fund that were spent on things that we, instead of spending them there, we took that over and put it above the notch. I used to say 60,000. And I went back and looked at the budget, and I was writing the other day, it's about 54,000. That's why I said the lion's share of what has been funded of this was things we don't do anymore, but there was a little bit that did have to come from someplace else in general fund. But again, I think it's important to point out again with this program that we were spending money on Learn, we were spending money on before and after school in the library, and we were spending money on Odysseyware.
Yeah.
And those three items together is about 54,000.
Right, and we found out Odysseyware wasn't that great, right? Which is excellent, that was deduced and we moved away from it, which is,
And thank you for that
Really good
feedback.
idea.
That's all we have to go on, you
Yeah.
know?
So that was 54,000. We put this coming year, we've got 60,000 in the general fund. So it's mostly it was a one-to-one, and we put a little bit of money from the general fund into it that wasn't going someplace else, but not much. But to say it was an exact offset is not entirely accurate. There was a little bit of a difference. But it's looking good. So, we're in good shape this year. I mentioned the Title V RIS grant finally was approved, so that's 13,000. Title IV is well on its way to being approved. We won't need that this year. We'll use it next year for above the notch. So it's above the notch, is in good shape financially. And again, if we don't get more, if we don't get more revenue, we don't spend the extra 30. We give it back or whatever. I mean, that's important to know. We don't need it. We won't have any reason to spend it if we don't get more students. But I think we're gonna get more students.
And Tom, I think you already explained this, but can you explain it again? Why doesn't this proposed number from 1920 on the back of this big packet, if everything's in here, it doesn't match up totally for this change sheet? So, and I just want to make sure I've understood it all just right.
Plus, the big packet still has $149,999.
Okay, yep,
That's
okay,
right, yeah.
thanks.
Once I get my act together and open my eyes tomorrow, we will issue
Yeah,
revised
another?
reports and have them for you tomorrow afternoon.
What does the board to say about changing numbers after?
No amount or purposes can be added without an additional hearing.
After tomorrow, I mean after
After
Wednesday?
the hearing, and of course, having an additional hearing is allowable, but requires 7 days' notice.
So you'd have an initial hearing and the delivery?
Yes?
Okay. So we need to have it pretty well figured out by Wednesday.
Yeah, you were
We're adding it.
Well, we won't be able to increase the dollar amount at that point, so we just, yeah. So that's the
That's
whole.
pretty good numbers, fellas.
Huh? Once you take into
Yeah.
account that
Yeah.
150, yeah, I
Last
just
year,
couldn't
we
quite, I
had
forgot
that
that, I was
situation.
trying to
Is it
make it
possible
work.
though, at Wednesday night, you could actually suspend the hearing and reconvene it? Is that what we did last
We did that with the delivery last year.
Yeah, what,
Not the
why?
budget hearing.
I don't think you can do a hearing forever and ever, isn't there a time limit you have to have the hearings
Yeah.
completed by? So I think we're, well, I don't.
But if you're ready for the situation, can you adjourn the hearing
Oh, I
and
see what
reconvene
you
it?
got.
I guess, but the hearing, I'm guessing you wouldn't, you're not taking any kind of vote or no, it's a,
I'm just, if it became an
Trying to
issue,
pull it
I'm
up,
just
Patty.
asking.
yeah, good question, I don't know.
I think it's the lower of it, it's the delivery.
Probably.
Yeah, we can reconvene that when they have.
And it has to be done within 30
Nobody
days.
came last year. Ralph was there. All of us.
Yeah, it doesn't
Al
say it
was
on
there.
this thing you prepared for us, I thought it might be on there. I'm all right with it,
The matrix.
But
I don't think you can wait for a budget hearing.
I think we're,
No, but there's a time, there's a specific
Right.
date that it has to be done by, and I
Right.
haven't done that.
well, I guess, would it be possible, Ann, as chairman, before we take a final vote on this, or whatever you have in 10, but if I could share some information from the facilities committee meeting that we had. I know that's on the list, but I think it's an important factor as we look at this. Would you be okay if we went to that part of the agenda for a minute?
I'm okay with this, the rest of the board okay
Sure.
with it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
She loves you. I'll make notes.
You might need to be more.
Oh, right. I do.
Your pass that down, I'm gonna look on with,
No, I made one for myself.
okay, good. So the facilities committee met on Friday. And Dale isn't here tonight, so I will try to just give a brief summary of it. As you know, the infrastructure fund, we're replacing some windows at the academy, and that is scheduled to be completed no later than March 30th. We are waiting on the performance bond, which is very close to being done. The district is responsible for 20% of this cost, and 80% of it then comes from the infrastructure fund. We also have some new cameras going in over February vacation, same fund. These are going to be installed in the high school, Lakeway, and the academy. It's the same ratio of funding. Also, over February vacation, we'll be getting the new rooftop ventilator system installed in the high school cafeteria. And we've allocated some funds, just as a board, just to remind you, from our equipment capital reserve fund to do that. With the melting ice and rain over the holiday break that we had, We had several facilities that experienced leaks. At Lakeway, Dale has been working with a roofing company to come in and take a look and try to assess what's going on, but the third grade wing roof, which we know is old, it was installed in 1982. So it's certainly, something we've been discussed in the past. But it has now cracked its membrane. It's very frail. There's a 4-inch separation between the wood siding and the roof. Water is getting in through this area and traveling through the building to leak in several spots, including the hallway just outside the cafeteria. The roof company projects no more than a 2-year life on this roof at Lakeway Elementary over the third grade area, and a replacement is recommended. Over to the kindergarten roof, which was installed in 2001. It's also leaking and needs to be repaired. That looks like we can definitely get a repair job on, and it should be okay. And Littleton High School, the 4th floor roof over the French room, it started leaking this fall, and it leaked again over the holiday vacation. The membrane is no longer adhered properly, the insulation is wet, and a core sample needs to be taken to analyze the problem. Again, Dale is working with a roofing company to make a plan. It will surely need to be repaired. The question is, does that entire roof need to be replaced? And I don't know the age of that installation of that roof. Dale's looking into that. Those 3 roofs are gonna need to be repaired in this school year once the weather, if we can, once the weather improves. Also, we've done a lot of work, as you all know, with unit ventilators at Lakeway. But it turns out in order to get them all functioning properly, we're gonna have to do some adjustments to thermostats now. And that work is going to cost between the least it's gonna be is about $5,500. I bet it could get up to $10,000 possibly to get that done. The other thing that Dale is looking into is the retaining rock walls at Littleton High School, Daisy Bronson. Those walls, particularly if you look at in the parking lot, if you were to look up the hill from here, but the parking lot that's to the left of the building, they look like they're not in great shape. And so he's working with an engineering company to figure out a plan of how to address that and get them repaired. So if you flip to the next page, I kind of tried to do a little summary based upon Dale's 5-year plan. I would say immediately we need to, find money in this year's budget to repair the leaks, the Lakeway 3rd grade wing, Lakeway kindergarten wing, as well as the leak in the French room at the high school. We gotta fix these, and I don't know how much that will cost.
That's from today.
Yep, I think looks to be between, I haven't seen that yet, okay. So,
Yeah, we do have a number.
now we do, yeah, this wasn't when I.
No, it just came in while we were in the meeting.
Okay, so it looks like you just received a quote, looks like to be between $6,000 and $9,000 to fix Lakeway and around $5,000 for the high school.
Is that for the roof or?
Roof repairs,
Just
yeah.
roof repairs.
So 6 to 9, say, and 5, so we're coming in between 10 to 15,000, say.
I'm sorry, does that include
Those numbers
3rd
don't
grade
include
wing?
3rd grade, no.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was gonna say. So
No.
it's just the kindergarten wing and then,
4th
Yeah.
floor.
thank you.
Okay, and the roofing company is recommending replacement of the 3rd grade
Right.
roof. Okay, so then we also have, so we need to do the thermostat repairs, and then we also, this spring, we're gonna need to fix the parking lot, the dirt parking lot across from Lakeway. Has some large potholes, and it's gonna need to get graded.
And my understanding, Leslie, is that's to be graded twice a year,
Yeah.
right, spring and fall, of course.
I also included a list of things that are sort of pressing, that are not included in our 1920 budget, things that got cut out of the process. So one would be the 3rd grade roof replacement, which a very old quote from that, maybe 4 years old, is $35,000. We need more playground mulch per our insurance company at the playground. we need to fix these rock retaining walls, and we also really need to repair and paint the pillars and the tower. So you can see some figures there, it's quite a bit. And then looking into the future, I just put this together so you guys could take a look at it. I know Dale has the 5-year plan on the drive. This is not as colorful as Dale's, this is a little different look.
He's all computer tech.
Just the black and white numbers. But when I did a little spreadsheet at home, we just, I put everything in Excel, and without even having quotes for everything, I was at 1.3 like that, $1.3 million.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind as we're looking forward and considering our budget. The other thing I would draw your attention to, there's lots of issues at Lakeway that we've kind of deferred, hoping that we're gonna get the building project, the upgrade to the alarm system is probably one of the most expensive, which we have not done. The alarm system is currently functioning, but it does not give an accurate location of where the fire is in the building. So it just kind of tells you to go to the cafeteria every time, which is not where the fire is, but it does get the fire department down there, and the fire chief is willing to work with that. And then on the very back page, the third page, other capital expenditures that could be coming are the replacement of our, what's known as Brenda's bus, which is used to transport some students with IEPs, which is required by their IEP. And also, we're gonna need to replace the custodial district truck at some point. So, and I don't know how much the big buses cost, or the small bus for the transferring to special education students. It needs to have a wheelchair lift, and our current bus has 110,000 miles on it. And it was purchased in 2007, so it's 11 years old. The reality is, we live in the land of salt, and it's probably not going to keep going forever. So, I just wanted to make you all, I know you're aware of it, but just to kind of go over it.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of roofs.
Any good news?
Not about facilities.
Does anybody have any good news?
No, there's lots, there are things that have been done for sure. It's just, keeping up with everything. It requires funds to keep up with everything. And I guess, I mentioned replacing the rooftop ventilator over the cafeteria. Well, that is our second replacement out of 6 of those units. They're all reaching their life. And so we have 4 more to do at $30,000 a pop. So they're just wearing out, and that's just the way it works. So we do need to put stuff like that in our budget, because we could just wipe out the facilities funds and the equipment funds pretty rapidly. So.
the budget hearing document, which you have, I shared with you, and is an ongoing document. I know some of you commented on different things and made suggestions. Thank you. It's a living document for a couple more days, and then I guess it'll die. But
Could resurrect it.
yeah, and it'll in various reincarnations. It will come back in February. But what I did there was, and there's a lot of the things that Leslie's mentioned, some of the things that she's mentioned and different ones that you mentioned, I've tried to incorporate into here, but just kind of for the benefit of everybody here, right now we're sitting with about $876,000 in our reserve fund, $876,705. That consists of $102,000 in equipment, $170,000 in facilities, $155,000 in our special ed tuition account. Hugh Gallen, $407,000, and the heating well fund, $41,000. Those are the balances. Now, we spent some off of those balances already, and we've got some commitments that I'll talk about here in a second. Facilities capital reserve fund, I said it's $170,349. What we've committed out of that fund so far for the year is $20,000, and that is the district match for the new windows that are going into the academy as part of the school infrastructure grant. So that if we don't tap facilities anymore for the remainder of this year, that'll leave us with about $150,000 at the end of this school year. However, next year, some of the things that Leslie was just talking about come into play. And then some of these might come into play yet this year, but the front pillars and the tower, $25,000. I said that's a little lower than the number I think she gave. Rock retaining falls, $25,000. Lakeway roof, $35,000. Playground enhancements, the mulch, and again, this is an insurance and liability safety issue, $10,000. Mats for the gym and Lakeway, $5,000. Bleachers over at the academy, $20,000.
And Steve, we haven't voted on
No.
these at all, like,
No, it's just a list.
which, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Asbestos removal, $10,000. You know, it's just a list because you start looking though at, and that's $130,000 of expenditures. So that $150,000 fund now, by the end of 1920 is about $20,000 left in it. School equipment capital reserve, $102,000. We spent about 25 out of it already, at least about 77. Right now, and again, that's possibly the bus, or at least the lease payments on the bus will come out of that in the future. And then a few other things. Hugh Gallen, I did have 150 coming out of there. I put it back in, so that's one of the few funds that will remain fairly strong. Bottom line is by the end of the next fiscal year, 2020, facilities would have about 20,000, equipment about 77,000. Our sped educational fund would have 0, because again, you got to remember we just where we were talking about $400,000 in our general fund this year for that purpose. But right now we're projecting $550,000 of expenditures next year, and I can't come to this board, and I certainly can't come to the town in a few days and say, oh, we'll put $300,000 or $400,000 there and see what happens. That's not a good plan. So we're covering, there's enough money between the general fund and the capital fund to cover next year's expenditures, assuming we don't have to break into the capital fund this year. So that one's zeroed out. CTC 351, fuel 41. So it ends up with about 490. So that's where we're going from 876 to 490. So the fund balances are not quite as healthy as they once were. Point of being. Yeah, and I realize the board hasn't acted on any of this, but that's to put that whole list into perspective for everybody else here. You know, where and it's not like we're not spending anything out of the general fund, by the way, for equipment and repairs and so on, because we are. We still are.
I think that brings us down to committee reports for the budget, unless anybody has any more questions.
Personnel has a meeting scheduled. This Wednesday.
We do.
Good Lord, weather agrees.
Yep.
Right?
I do know that we'll have a couple new job descriptions, counselor specifically, being worked on.
So facilities next meeting isn't gonna be till February, the first Friday in February. And policy meeting, we have one coming up in the middle of the month sometime. So that brings us to the superintendent's report.
I've talked enough. I didn't prepare any formal report.
We'll have to talk about tonight.
By now you all heard probably more than you want out of me. I will say this, that I think that I thank the budget committee members and other committee members for being here tonight and for all the time that you put in and the effort and we've all put in, I think, to the process. We've got a long ways to go yet, I know that. A couple more meetings and a couple more big meetings, but I think it's been very good. And again, I think with the work the town has done as well, it's been very, speaking personally, very much appreciated.
Yeah. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public. Any other questions?
I said,
The meeting's over.
No, the meeting is in order.
What?
We got a public input, no?
What?
We do it at the beginning of our meeting, Rudy?
I know.
Meeting started at 5, Rudy.
Yeah, we
You
were
know
having
that?
a public
You didn't know that?
This is for the school, it's not for me, it's just
Yeah,
I want to inform
Yeah.
the superintendent, you know, what happened at the town meeting, which you guys don't know. It's kind of, I don't know, I mean, you know, you get so upset.
Oh, I'm not upset.
When I'm talking, I talk in favor of education. I'm not talking because you guys do excellent job. Unfortunately, you know, you gotta listen to both the parties. You laughing, you shouldn't
No,
laugh.
I'm laughing because I'm not upset.
You understand that?
I am not
And
upset.
also, if you guys don't wanna listen, me and Steve can go in the other room and tell them everything that happened at the meeting in town. And like that is gonna find out that they got some people in town that they really care about the school and what's going on with the school. It's no laughing about. Do you understand that? Or you don't understand that?
She
I would
does
like you to
understand
speak-
it, she stated that,
Oh,
so she's
no,
not
she don't
laughing.
say that,
I understand it.
okay?
And I
Because
will
you guys,
continue
you
to
don't know what
smile.
happened in the other meeting, okay? I know, Rafi knows,
Okay.
it's for the good of the school, the way you guys work very hard to accomplish something. If the people don't inform you, all this fake news that you read in the paper, or you listen to Stevie Kelly, doesn't gonna do nothing for the school. Believe it, Rudy Gels when I say something. And I would like 2 minutes, you know, to speak with the committee, if it's possible. I don't know who's the chairman and stuff like that.
The chair.
I'm the chairman.
Chair,
Public
may I?
input.
Okay. No, if you say no, it's no problem. You know, do your chair. I just raise my hand. I need 1 minute, you know, to,
She can put, she can ask her.
You can ask us how we feel. I think we should let Rudy have his say.
Fine, thank you.
I'm good with 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
thank you very much. I should address all you guys or Steve? Or the
We're all
Okay,
here.
We're all
all
here.
right. This over here to the committee. We have a meeting, you know, today, of a town meeting, okay? And unfortunately, you guys gotta take care of the school, you were not there, okay? We were talking about the $900,000, you know, that you guys are gonna put on the warrant articles, okay?
What guys?
We're going to put on
The
the
school.
warrant article.
Yeah, we're gonna put one on.
The school, right, you know, the warrant article. Well, that warrant article ended up to be that the tax payers over the little town for next to 20 years, that's how long you're gonna take it down, 900,000, is gonna cost $2.20 you know, over $1,000, right, you know, for whatever property you got. This is for 20 years. Do you really think that the people in Little Town, right, you know, the first $2.20 that they're gonna pay to the town on taxation, is gonna be for this $900,000 that you guys, you know, asking for it? This is $2.20, right? $2.20.
Where did
Okay,
that
Where
come
did that come from?
from? Rudy, where did that information
We
come from?
we just got back from the select board meeting. Unfortunately, you guys in the select board scheduled meetings on the same night.
Oh,
So we presented our little presentation about Lakeway to the select board tonight.
oh.
What Rudy heard was that if we went for a bond today for $20 million, it would be $2.20 per thousand. But as I explained, we're not doing that. We're running this over a period of time. We're looking to do just the property and the engineering reports this year. Then, as we're waiting for state aid to come back, or we're waiting for some of those bonds to come off, that's when we'll go and ask for an additional bond to build the school. But if we get state aid at 55%, we're not talking anywhere near $20 million. And we're not talking anywhere near $2.20 per thousand.
But that's
It's a whole lot less, okay? And that's what I was trying to explain to you is, we're not going for all of that this year. We're only going for the 900,000, and I understand it's gonna be a 5 to 6 year bond, 5-year bond, 900,000. That's what we're looking for this year, so we can get ready for the state aid to come back. That's where he's picking this up.
I see.
That came up at the selectmen's meeting tonight.
So in Ralph, since you weren't here, we went for up to 900,000, based upon, we're hoping we might have some unexpended fund balance we can apply to it and, you know, and not have to borrow quite so much.
Okay.
That'd be
Also,
great.
also I believe it, but the board, it should push the town to cut off a lot of projects that they have. Because, you know, we got $3 million for a swimming pool, a park and recreation. We got $200,000 to buy a piece of property, stuff like that.
Rudy,
Rudy,
they also told you tonight at the selectmen's meeting that they put a lot of that off this year, knowing that we're going to be looking at a new school. They've already put a lot of that off.
I feel the town is really
So-
being supported, so.
Yeah.
So I think your 2 minutes are up,
All right, thank you.
thank you for letting us know.
Thank you, Rudy.
and we need a motion to go into non-public, please.
Make a motion to go into non-public under paragraph 2, section 3 of the RSA 91A:3 of the right to know law for number 2 and 3, the hiring of any person as a public employee, and number 3, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. Taking with us the superintendent, the business manager, and Patty.
I have,
I think 4, we put 4 like other, others on there too.
So number 4 too,
and
consider
I have
it.
a couple questions about programmatic issues, about a couple of these things, that will you be able to answer them?
If it's, Jennifer's here if you need her, or Al.
Okay, but what I
Obviously,
think,
Crystal's ill, so she.
Okay.
okay.
Oh,
It
okay.
goes with that.
So we're also looking to take number 4, consider, is it right? Am I looking at number 4? Consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property. And also number 7, consideration by the school board of entering into a student or pupil, is that the one? Pupil tuition contract authorized by RSA 194 and RSA 195A, is that correct? And taking with us, in addition to who I already mentioned,
Well, I have a question about one of the changes in the CTC and about program, that it probably also affects the high school program of
So,
studies.
taking with us-
Jen and then.
taking with us Jen and Al
If I
first.
did it first, maybe it could then.
Okay, so taking with us Jennifer Carbonell and Al.
Sorry.
Second, well, you can answer it.
Roll call vote,
Did you
please.
get that all? Okay. Greg Cook.
Leslie Robbins.
Ellen Nelson.
Kim Woodson.
Thank you.
Very much.
Shut off the camera.
Thank you.
So you-